Arteta's biggest test. What Arsenal must fix to beat Man City and save the title dream. Sunday changes everything. Not in theory, not in hype, but in reality. Arsenal walk into the Etihad knowing this is the moment that defines their season. Win and the title race flips back into their control. Lose and suddenly all the pressure, all the doubts, all the questions that have been quietly building over the last few weeks explode into something much louder. This is not just another big game. This is the game people will look back on and say, that was where it was won or lost. Because let us be honest, Arsenal are not arriving at this moment in perfect condition. The last few weeks have exposed cracks that were not there earlier in the season. The Carabao Cup final loss hurt, the FA Cup exit shocked people, and the defeat to Bournemouth did more than just drop points. It shifted belief. It made people start asking whether this team has the mentality to finish what they started. That is the real danger right now. Not just Manchester City, but doubt. And the problem with facing a team like Manchester City when you are carrying doubt is simple. They punish hesitation. They thrive on moments where you are not fully convinced. They have lost just one domestic game in 2026. That is not form, that is dominance. That is a team that knows exactly who they are, exactly how they want to play, and exactly how to break you when you are not at your best. So the question is not whether Arsenal are good enough. We already know they are. The question is whether they can be brave enough, sharp enough, and decisive enough in the biggest moment of their season. Now, before we even get into tactics, we have to talk about the biggest factor shaping this game: availability. Because right now, Arteta is not just planning for Manchester City, he is managing uncertainty. Bukayo Saka is the headline issue. Arsenal's most dangerous attacker, the player who stretches defences, the one who creates fear in defenders, has not played since the Carabao Cup final. Achilles tendinopathy is not an injury you gamble with. It is not something you rush. If he is not ready, he does not play. And if he does not play, Arsenal lose their most important attacking weapon. And that changes everything. Because without Saka, Arsenal become easier to predict, easier to contain, easier to press. Then you add Noni Madueke, who picked up a knee issue in Europe, and suddenly the depth in wide areas looks thin. The only small positive is the potential return of Ricardo Calafiori, which could give Arsenal balance on the left side, but even that is not guaranteed. So Arteta is walking into the Etihad needing solutions, not just plans. And that is where the biggest tactical debate comes in. Martin Zubimendi. This is where opinions split inside the Arsenal fanbase. Because earlier in the season, he looked like the perfect controller. Calm, intelligent, reliable. But recently, under pressure, his limitations have been exposed. He plays safe. He plays predictable. He plays within a 180-degree mindset instead of a 360-degree one. And against Manchester City's press, that is a problem you cannot hide. City press with purpose. When they push forward, it is coordinated, aggressive, and designed to trap you. 4 players up front, cutting passing lanes, forcing you into mistakes. And when Zubimendi drops between the centre-backs to receive the ball, he becomes the target. If he cannot turn, if he cannot break that first line, Arsenal get stuck. They go sideways. They go backwards, and slowly they lose control of the game. So the question becomes bold but necessary. Do you drop him? And here is where things get really interesting, because the alternative is not a like-for-like replacement. The alternative is a complete tactical shift. The Odegaard solution. Instead of using a traditional holding midfielder in that deep build-up role, Arsenal could drop Martin Odegaard deeper alongside Declan Rice. And suddenly, everything changes. Now Arsenal have a player who can receive under pressure and turn, a player who sees forward passes instantly, a player who is comfortable in tight spaces. When Odegaard drops, the structure becomes fluid. The left-back inverts. Gabriel shifts centrally. Rice anchors the middle. And Arsenal create a diamond that can actually play through City's press, instead of just surviving it. And this is the key word: survive or control. Because if Arsenal go to the Etihad just trying to survive, they lose. It is that simple. Manchester City do not let you survive for 90 minutes. Eventually, they find a way. Arsenal need to control moments. They need to create overloads. They need to force City to react. But of course, all of this depends on one thing: fitness. If Ødegaard is not fully ready, this plan becomes a risk, and Arteta has to decide whether to take that risk or stay with a structure that has been struggling under pressure. Now, while everyone is focused on Erling Haaland, and rightly so, there is another problem Arsenal cannot ignore: Rayan Cherki. This is where the tactical battle becomes unpredictable, because Cherki does not play in one position. He drifts, he appears, he disappears. He shows up in spaces where defenders are not expecting him, and that kind of movement breaks defensive systems. Because modern teams defend with structure, with zones, with assignments. But what happens when a player refuses to stay in his zone? Someone has to make a decision, and that decision creates space somewhere else. So Arsenal need a clear plan, not a vague one, a clear one. The most logical solution is controlled man marking in key areas. When Cherki enters Arsenal's defensive half, someone tracks him. Not everywhere, not all the time, but in dangerous zones he cannot be free. If Calafiori is fit, he becomes a strong candidate for that role. If not, someone else has to step up. At the same time, William Saliba must focus on Haaland. That is non-negotiable. Your best defender against their biggest threat. And Gabriel has to be ready to shift, to cover, to adapt when the structure stretches. Because make no mistake, this game will stretch Arsenal. Physically, tactically, mentally. And that is why Declan Rice becomes the most important player on the pitch. Not because he will score, not because he will produce a highlight moment, but because he is the balance. He is the one who keeps the structure intact when everything else is moving. He cannot get dragged out of position. He cannot lose discipline. He has to be the constant in a game full of chaos. And beyond all the tactics, beyond all the injuries, beyond all the analysis, there is one truth Arsenal cannot escape. This is Arteta's moment. Building a great team is one thing, winning with it is another. This is where decisions define legacies. Does he trust experience or take a risk? Does he stick or adapt? Does he play safe or go bold? Because if Arsenal play safe, they lose. They have to be brave. They have to take responsibility. They have to impose themselves. Not wait, not react, but impose. And now think about what a win actually means. It is not just 3 points. It is belief. It is momentum. It is sending a message to Manchester City that the title race is not slipping away. It is reminding everyone, including themselves, that they are capable of beating the best team in the league on their own ground. That changes everything. But if they lose, the narrative shifts, the pressure increases, the belief cracks, and suddenly the rest of the season becomes a chase instead of a fight from the front. That is what is at stake. So this is the question, not just for the players, not just for Arteta, but for every Arsenal fan watching. Do you believe this team has the courage to step up in this moment? Do you believe they can go to the Etihad and take control of their own destiny? Because Sunday is not just another game. Sunday is the moment. And moments like this define seasons.